controlling cash, right? If everything is electronic, it's just another way for the government to micromanage our lives, right? Stalin and Hitler and all these other tyrants of history never could have dreamed about the type of control that's possible today using technology.
Right.
And so
it's their total dream, what they're seeing now.
This build-out of technology, while technology can do many good things, just like government, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master, maybe. So if it's not used properly, it could also be very dangerous. And so this move to make everything electronic means every transaction we do anywhere, anytime, can potentially be known.
Oh, Zion, dear Zion, home of the free.
This Defending Utah presentation brought to you in part by Anderson Accounting, Trust Plumbing, Higher Calling Firearms, Mini Zoo Comes to You, American Appliance, The Editor Lady, Shem Financial Services, and the law offices of Garrett T. Smith. Hello, good afternoon, good Saturday afternoon. This is Ben McClintock and
Enoch Moore
from defendingutah.org, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. We are so glad that you've joined us this lovely Saturday afternoon. And last week we had that fantastic guest. We had Ammon Bundy, and we'll be having him on regularly as well in the future to be able to talk about what they're doing in the future and what we can do to help be able to promote the cause of liberty. If you want to join the program today, please give us a call at 801-254-1640. That's 801-254-1640. And just before we really get into, this is going to be kind of we're going to be more a traditional radio program today where we're not going to have just one subject go in depth. We're actually going to be able to hit a lot of different subjects. The first thing I wanted to bring up was something that was interesting that just happened on the way to the radio station today. I went into the bank to deposit some money into to pay a bill, and the teller told me, I thought it just blew me away, was that starting on January 23rd, that if you want to deposit money into somebody else's bank account, putting money to somebody else, you won't be able to deposit more than $500.
Otherwise, it's a federal crime.
Right, a federal crime.
We've seen this incremental move to just make cash less comfortable and less. Right, it's an incremental move to eventually do away with cash. That's what people have been talking about. And in the news, you see reports about how Sweden and India have taken even further, more drastic steps.
Right.
But it is an international trend. With things that to use cash, sometimes there's extra fees now, and they're trying to make it more and more convenient to use electronic, which is fine to be more convenient, but they're making cash less convenient. That's the hope.
Right. It's not they're trying to make things more convenient. They're trying to make cash less convenient.
Right. And the more convenient they make electronic payments, then the easier it'll be to do away with cash.
Right.
It's kind of how that goes. So and there was more to it, though. So $500 fine into your friend's account. If you go to your friend's bank and say, I want to give him $600 for
or just some random person, you're like, I'm in the mood to give away money today.
Whatever.
It's not like you can, you're like, the bank's like, what kind of fraud's going on here? You're giving people money to access. No, you can't, access their account by doing that, especially cash. There's no way to be able to trace it back and to somehow hack into their account. And that, and we'll get into in a second what their reasoning behind it was. And it had nothing to do with that. So the other part of this, which was really interesting, was that even if it is your own account, you cannot deposit more than $500 in cash without filling out a bunch of paperwork.
They want to know, where did you get that?
Cash? Who uses cash?
Something funny.
You must be a criminal if you're using cash. Only criminals use cash.
There were several FBI reports several years ago. I remember these went around. They kind of got spread around the internet. Maybe it was the Michigan MIAC report. There was some report where they talked about signs of extremism, and one of them was someone who uses cash. This was
if you use cash, you're an
5-6
extremist.
years ago, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, it was suspicious signs to look for, and it was a paper that the FBI was giving to different types of businesses. here are things you look out for possible extremist behaviors to report back to us. Maybe it was a Homeland Security, not an FBI thing, right?
Uh-huh.
But it was things to look out for. And so different businesses, they're like, if someone's using cash, you might want to let us know, right?
And it's not even like, normally like if it was $10,000 was like the old limit of like you've got to report it to the federal government if you're depositing or withdrawing or dealing with $10,000 worth of cash. Now it's like $500. That can be like, oh, I need to go Christmas shopping, or oh, I need to buy a new TV, or whatever.
Right, they're really getting into the everyday average person, and this goes into what you've talked about in the past, the Communist Manifesto, about how the principles of Marxism are implemented on a society little by little.
Right.
So years ago, it wasn't unreasonable. Most of us would have said, if someone deposited $10,000 in cash, that you asked, hey, where'd that come from, right? And really, that's, in my opinion,
none of your business.
None of your business.
Right.
But most of us would have just said, I guess that's reasonable. It could be a drug dealer, right?
Right.
And so that's been the law for so long. It just seems so normal now. But that now they can go to this 500 limit, and it's going to be, it'll still be painful. Like people will be like, what? But
most people won't because we're already used to just paying with our charge card or whatever.
Yeah, we'll get used to it.
Or a debit card.
We'll say, okay, I guess so.
Whatever.
Right.
Because it was for a good reason. We're trying to stop money laundering was what they were saying.
Right.
We got to stop money laundering. But what was interesting
I launder my kids' money all the time on accident.
in the
He
washing
leaves it
machine.
in his pocket.
And so they were saying that the reason why they were doing this was to prevent money laundering. And I said, well, wouldn't a money launderer that was smart just say, okay, I'll pay? Because this is what she told me to do. She said, if you need to deposit more than $500, just do it in 2 days. I was like, well, wouldn't a money launderer do that?
Yeah. So it's clearly not.
And she's like, oh, yeah, totally. And there's other things that money launderers can get around, too. She was like telling me that there's tons of easy ways to get around money laundering laws as just a bank teller talking to a customer.
So that seems to suggest that money laundering laws, the purpose may not actually be to stop money laundering. It may just be something else.
Something else.
If she's saying it's common knowledge among bankers just how to just get around it.
Right.
That's just amazing. That's like going to like the TSA and they're like, oh yeah, if you want to get something on the plane, just go in that door.
We can't bring water through the metal detector, but go ahead and bring water through, at the store once you get through the metal detector.
Yeah, or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that the TSA actually stops terrorists. We
As
understand
never
they're
has.
completely fraudulent in the first place. Right.
So that was just an interesting thing that I thought the listeners would find just fascinating because it's, again, an incremental step to bring us, again, towards, more and more control over the aspects of our everyday lives.
Micromanaged, centralized control.
Yep. So the next thing I thought we would bring up, if we've beaten that to like a dead horse, is the people pushing the Blame and Change Constitutional Convention, or AKA led by a group called the Convention of States, other George Soros types groups who say that the Constitution is flawed, and to be able to get the Congress to obey the Constitution, we need to change it because they're ignoring it now. So, if you add some more lines, they'll want to obey it, right? That the logic is just ridiculous on its face. It's obviously not about shrinking government. The con folks obviously want to increase the control of government, and they're having an event coming up in just a couple of weeks. We're not going to, we're not promoting it, but we just want to let people know about it because we thought it was funny because last year they had a rally at the Capitol.
And it was supposed to be like show all this support that the
right.
public had, and it turned out everyone there was just like them and their buddies.
It was a handful of two handfuls of people. It was sad. And then again, just a couple of months ago, they had the con people had a rally for religious liberty, which they were hoping like if we're not going to tell people it's about a con, maybe they'll come. And there's maybe another handful of people showed up.
They had some people actually show up for a religious liberty
but still hardly any, especially with the big money that's behind them. I mean, it's completely the push for an Article 5 convention is seriously astroturf. Nobody on the grassroots wants to change the Constitution.
Wants it.
Right. I mean, what kind of liberty lover says, you know what, the Constitution, it stinks. We need to do a complete overhaul. I mean, it's ridiculous. And so we just think it'll be funny. We'll report on their event later on this month and let you know if anybody actually showed up this time. So the next thing we wanted to talk about was we thought was pretty interesting. Well, do we want to do that, or do we want to talk about our undercover work that we've been working on with the feds, or we want to work on that later, maybe?
Let's talk about, you've got some local Agenda 21 things.
Okay.
So, and because talking about the cash, that actually segues into that. Controlling cash, right? If everything is electronic, it's just another way for the government to micromanage our lives, right? Stalin and Hitler and all these other tyrants of history never could have dreamed about the type of control that's possible today using technology.
Right.
And so
it's their total dream, what they're seeing now.
This build out of technology, while technology can do many good things, just like government, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master, maybe. So if it's not used properly, it could also be very dangerous. And so this move to make everything electronic means every transaction we do anywhere, anytime, can potentially be known, right? And you have no privacy, and that's a concern. So this micromanaging of society then segues into this, what we've talked about on the show before, Agenda 21.
Yeah,
that's kind of the whole point of Agenda 21. It's how do you implement the ultimate Marxist communist control internationally, right? It's this excuse of, well, in order to save the earth, we have to know everything you're doing at every moment of the day and tell you whether you can or can't do that. And then we can save the earth from overusing resources.
Right.
By the way, church leaders have spoken on that as early as the 90s, where they said they quoted scripture. It said the earth is full and there is plenty and to spare, and that this idea comes from the adversary. So for local LDS, if you haven't been sure where you stand on that, so
it's pretty plain.
The earth is full and there is plenty and to spare. Now, we should be good stewards of the resources we have, but there's no such thing as there's not enough. When people are free,
it's a false dichotomy.
They create resources.
Right? It's a false dichotomy of you either want to ruin the environment or you want to control everybody's life. If those are the two, that's a false choice.
It's a false choice. We want to take care of the resources we have, but we get to control them. They were given to the people of the earth, not to the governments to tell us when and where we can use them.
Right.
So Agenda 21, it's actually, you can see it. If you look at government and what they're doing on various levels, you can see it in the programs they're executing every day. And so we're going to talk about some of those specific examples that generally we may not even think about. Right?
Because we don't have a bunch of UN troops invading America implementing Agenda 21. It has to be done, like the people are basically asking for it, and it's being done through financial incentives and ways to get people to not really care about it.
Ways, for example, a city council will say, oh, look at this grant we can get from the state or from the federal government. All we have to do is do this. And the local city council may have no clue they're implementing a United Nations program. They just know, oh, we got this document that says we can get some extra money for our city if we follow these steps. They don't really care the long-term vision. They're like, we just need
some cash.
Build a park this way instead of that way. Okay, it seems insignificant and no big deal.
We'll learn more about that when we get back from the break. This has been Enoch for Defending Utah Radio. Think right and wrong, not right and left.
Tired of bureaucrats and tyrannical government? Defending Utah knows how to fix that. It's called nullification. To find out more, stop by our office and pick up your pamphlet on nullification today. DefendingUtah.org. Think right and wrong, not right and left. Can't get enough Defending Utah Radio? Then follow us on Facebook and subscribe to Defending Utah's YouTube channel. DefendingUtah.org. Think right and wrong, not right and left.
Hey, we're back on K-Talk AM 1640. This is Ben McClintock with Enoch Moore from DefendingUtah.org, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. Before we went back to the break, one of the things that we left off on was local implementation of United Nations Agenda 21. And like we said, the UN's not just coming in and invading the United States and saying, you're going to do this Agenda 21 program, And if you don't know what Agenda 21 is, please just go ahead and Google it, and you'll have some good videos. It would take too much time to really kind of give a brief overview, but maybe an overview of it. But there's local implementation of it. Cities are being incentivized.
So let's
There's
talk
other
about
programs.
that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Example.
Yeah.
So American Fork City, American Fork, Utah. So this is what they posted on their Facebook page. American Fork
This
City.
year. Or, 2017. So really recent. Just a couple weeks ago.
Within the okay, so this was 2018.
Oh, it is this year. Okay, so this
Yeah.
year, this is recent. This isn't old stuff. This is right now.
Right now. So it says American Fork City has hired an engineer company to help us collect survey data required by the federal government for us to qualify for a grant that would fund water line projects south of Main Street.
So the federal government's going to fund a local project. We're stealing money from people in other states to fund what we need.
Right. As part of their as part of their survey, they should be providing you the attached letter from the city. So then there's this letter, and
That you're supposed to fill out. That's basically a form that you're supposed to fill out to be able to help the city get these ill-gotten funds from the federal government.
and the kinds of questions that they have, there are some like here. We'll on Facebook. We'll even kind of share the link to the Facebook, the American Fork City page.
So if you're watching on our Facebook channel, Defending Utah's Facebook channel, you can see the link that we listed there.
But here are some of the questions. They're saying, how many people are in the household? What's the ethnicity of the people in your household? What is the yearly income of the people in your household, right? So what is this? First of all, what does this have to do with water
Lines.
improvement projects, right? They're getting this type of private information on families. So the Constitution allows for a census once every 10 years that's solely for the purpose of counting people, and that's it. That's it. So that way they can determine
the federal government has no
representation.
authority to be able to ask you what your ethnicity is. That makes them racist, right? If they're asking for your ethnicity, and what your income is, or how many. I guess how many people would be in the census, not in this thing to be able to get illegal funds.
Yeah, or maybe they use that and cross-reference it with the IRS and be like, "Oh, this number was off from this number. We're gonna audit you now," right? Or who knows? There could be who knows what they want to do with that, but. But American Fork City then is complying and helping gather data on citizens. Why? Just so they can get free money for this water project.
Quote-unquote free money.
Quote-unquote free money. Well, and we know these types of projects now that the feds are incentivizing. When we haven't looked into this specific post, but they're usually directly connected to how you're reorganizing your city for Agenda 21 purposes, and or what Envision Utah maybe has been suggesting, or those types of things.
Right.
Right. So that's American Fork City. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, so if you're from American Fork, maybe you can let us know what maybe you've heard about that or what you've seen, because we'd be interested in seeing that.
Right.
So.
Right. So then there's another thing. If you've been watching the news, here's another Agenda 21 thing. They've talked about how Governor Herbert, quote, allegedly has this great idea of how we can.
It was his, he's like all of a sudden one day,
he's
like, I got a great way to fund roads without raising gas taxes.
Yeah, so he's being credited with this idea, or at least in this one article. It was just funny this one article gave him the credit about Herbert has this great idea to tax per mile, the everywhere you drive. And it's really a national idea.
But back up. It's kind of, what is this? Explain this idea. What is this per mile tax?
So instead of, I don't know if it'd be instead of gas tax. Might be probably. I'm sure it'll both.
Well, of course.
But
you never get rid of a tax. You kidding me?
Yeah. But the idea is every mile you drive in your car is taxed. So the government has to know if you went 13 miles today, or if you went 12 miles the next day, or whatever. You have to somehow keep track. Right, and
so how would they be able to do that?
So
how do you think they're going to?
There are several ways. The least invasive way. First of all, they just shouldn't do it in the first place. None of their business. But the least invasive way probably is whenever you fill up gas, you just clock in how many miles you've driven since the last
and then you
time you filled
report
up.
That voluntarily, or what do you? Think
it would be voluntarily report it, or maybe to fill up on gas that require you. Something like that, or the most invasive way, which I'm sure I have no doubt this is where it's ultimately going, is technology on your car that just simply records how many miles you went in the day and reports it back.
Another way I was thinking that might do this would be when you register your car every year. They would check the mileage from the year before to this year, and they would say, this will add to the cost of your registration.
There you go. So then that would be even less invasive because it would just be once a year check-in, and then you just kind of pay for it. And I bet most people in Utah would just have no problem with that because
they wouldn't think about it. It's just the cost of registering my vehicle.
Right. It would be very easy to implement it that way. But I went to a meeting in Provo, the Provo 50 Summit. Now I'm forgetting. But I wrote an article about this meeting I went to several years ago.
On defendingutah.org.
At defendingutah.org. And it was a summit that Provo City held where they talked about all these ideas of the future, and they were all Agenda 21 style ideas. There were many environmental groups that were kind of in the crowd and represented, and one of the ideas that one of the presenters gave to this whole crowd was per mile fee. They're like, in the future, we'll charge per mile. Isn't that great? That's a great way to incentivize people to conserve resources, right? Which sounds altruistic again, but we talked about that. It's all really, it's government control. They could care less about what you're actually putting in the atmosphere. And automobiles aren't even the main culprit anyway, right? Like when you talk about the inversion, the main culprit is not cars. So that is so in order to do this program, there is a new regional government called.
Let me just break in for a second. I'm sorry. I apologize. So I just got a phone call.
Breaking news?
Breaking news.
Breaking news, okay.
I just got a phone call on my phone. I thought that was just really weird because it was all zeros. I was like, what is a phone number with all zeros calling me? And then all of a sudden I get a voicemail left on my phone. And it's the Murray Police Department left a message looking for an elderly man. So if you're in Murray and they're looking for a guy with dementia. So there's two things there that we can help somebody find this elderly guy with dementia in Murray, but I also thought it was weird that I would get a phone call from the Murray Police Department asking for that.
So why didn't the caller ID say the Murray Police Department phone number?
I don't know.
That's interesting too.
It's breaking news. We don't know.
Breaking news. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. If you're in Murray, be on the lookout for a confused man wandering the streets or
Help
something. Okay. So going back to this per mileage thing, this new regional government is called the Western Road Usage Charge Consortium, or RUC West. So they have created a government, a regionally based government. This is all the style of Agenda 21, in order to run this program of keeping track of how many miles everybody in the whole region drives, right? So this is a collaborative effort to do away with the per gallon tax and implement a mileage-based fee that could be adjusted. Could be adjusted without a vote of the people, and ultimately, like I said before, this is going to lead to technology in your car that monitors that.
It's a regional government doing this, and so not only is it just it can be changed. It's being changed not by your own elected representatives. This is a regional government. This is Agenda 21 regionalism, deciding what your taxes are. This is exactly what. One of the main things that the War for Independence was all about was this taxation without representation. They're doing this right now in the state of Washington. It's been going on for a long time. And in Washington, they sold it as depending on where you're at is how they're selling it, okay? So in liberal states, they're selling it as a way to fight global warming.
And they just like that, and they're like, great.
Like, ooh, goody, goody, goody. And then in conservative states, they're like saying, well, you know what? Because people are just switching over to electric cars, we need to be able to fund the roads. What's a conservative? This is what they're saying. What's a conservative way to fund roads? And so they say, well, it's a conservative to fund for usage, and so we're just going to do this per mile tax because that's the conservative solution. And so they're lying to both sides. This is about control. This is about big government. This is not a solution to help global warming. This is not a solution to be able to do a usage tax, to the conservative solution for funding infrastructure. And we're being lied to because this is under a regional government. This is not about either one of the ways that they're trying to sell it to us. And again, that link is on our Facebook live stream at Defending Utah's Facebook page.
You really need to think about this regional government aspect of it, right? our government, we have county government, we have city government. Those people have been elected by us, usually, except for in cases of fraud, right? Right. But generally, right, at least the theory is they were elected by us, and if anybody should be making decisions and doing things, it's the people who know that they're accountable to the citizens in the area. But this regional, this side government comes in and has all these ideas and does things. It's a foreign entity. This is not your government making these decisions about how your city is run. They're getting their ideas from this foreign entity, this regional entity that has signed, a United Nations NGO agreement, which says they put the interests of the UN first, and then this regional entity goes to the city, and then the city will pick up. We'll just go along with the program. So, I mean, really, we could hold our city council members accountable and let them know that we know that this is a program from the Utah League of Cities and Towns, or from Envision Utah, or in this case, from the Western Road Usage Charge Consortium, right? You go to them and you say, this isn't your idea. You're getting this from another place. And why don't you look at our city and you decide what's going on in our town and run our city like you were elected to? Well, you're just doing whatever this regional entity says. And to be honest, in many cases, the same people in our city councils are actually members of these regional groups. So that's why they kind of just go along with it. For example, I know in Sandy City, the president of the Utah League of Cities and Towns was on the city council. And when you look at the backgrounds of all of them, you usually find those kinds of connections.
Right. So if you got any questions or comments on this topic, give us a call at 801-254-1640. This has Ben and Enoch for Defending Utah Radio. We've got Rick on the line from Salt Lake City. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. In regards to the getting charged by the mile to drive our vehicles, I don't know if most people know this, but in the year 2013, all new cars had to come with a black box, and this black box collects all your data on how you drive, the miles you drive, GPS, even how fast you have been driving, and how fast you go into turn and all this kind of stuff. And so that's how they're going to be able to use that technology to implement this miles that you've been driving. I don't know how they're going to do it on cars that don't have that technology.
They'll just phase out the old cars over. They just know eventually those cars will kind of go away, right? So
yeah.
So, but that's a good point. I do remember reading several times about the black box. It's similar to the black box, like in an airplane. They would have said, "Oh, this is important because when cars get in a crash, we can find out what happened," right? But you're right. It is collecting all that information, and yeah, you're right.
And also, insurance companies are using that information as well. Car insurance companies. Thank you.
Thank you. Great call. Appreciate it. Call back anytime, Rick.
And line 3, you are on the air with K-Talk. Do you have a question?
Yeah, hello.
Yep. You're on the air.
Hello.
Can you hear us? You're on the air.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. One should ask Mia Love if this is something that she understands about. I would bet you she'd say, duh, what's that?
That's a pretty common response from elected officials when you bring up a hard question for them. But, yeah, you're right. Thanks for the call. When we get back from the break, we'll be talking about this a little bit more. Give us a call if you have any questions or comments. 801-254-1640. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore from DefendingUtah.org, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. Go to our website and pick up some materials or become a member today. We'll be back right after the break.
Tired of bureaucrats and tyrannical government? Defending Utah knows how to fix that. It's called nullification. To find out more, stop by our office and pick up your pamphlet on nullification today. DefendingUtah.org. Think right and wrong, not right and left. Can't get enough Defending Utah Radio? Then follow us on Facebook and subscribe to Defending Utah's YouTube channel. DefendingUtah.org. Think right and wrong, not right and left.
Good Saturday afternoon. This is Ben McClintock with Enoch Moore from DefendingUtah.org, again, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. We're talking about principles here and about how to preserve liberty. If you want to become a part of that, please consider going on to DefendingUtah.org and becoming a member today. Support the efforts of Defending Utah. Support the efforts of this program. Also, you can get materials that can help you educate yourself and educate others on the website. Just click on the store tab at defendingutah.org, and we've got videos, we've got booklets, all kinds of different things for you to be able to educate yourself and educate others. It's important. Even if you've already read some of our books or saw our videos, pick up some of the material and spread it out to your friends and family to help them understand what's going on. We've been talking about local implementation of United Nations Agenda 21.
And there aren't very many organizations that get into locally what's happening and help you identify locally the actual Agenda 21 plans. How is the United Nations operating in your town?
Without Defending Utah, no other organization was talking about how the lands transfer movement was implementing Agenda 21 and exposed that and was able to slow it down and stop big portions of it. And so
for now,
well, I mean, evil never gives up,
right?
And
no, it's a continued effort.
But so far, that's what we've been able to do. We've had great success on that. So it's important that you organize. Evil's organized. It's important to organize with other good people, and so we've been talking about how it's being implemented because it's not just the federal government. It's not the United Nations coming in. We have our local cities, counties, regional governments implementing this, and we don't even realize it. So we've been talking about some of those aspects.
We have Tom, who's calling from Bountiful, who has he wants to chime in on the conversation with local Agenda 21. Tom, you're on the air.
Yeah, in your mind or in your experience or research, how far back do you think Agenda 21 was machinated or drawn or drafted, whatever you want to call it?
Well, we know it was passed in 1992 at the Rio conference, but the same concepts and ideas, go back to... they brought up over and over again. So this specific program and this part of it, has been around for, 35 years probably, if not longer.
What's the ultimate goal?
Well, they've got the ultimate goal is control. And so
go ahead. How about culling?
Well, that's a big part of it. And they've talked about, like you've probably seen like the Georgia Guidestones. And also other parts of the United Nations Agenda 21, they've talked about how they need to eliminate huge portions of society. Bill Gates has talked about how vaccines are being used to being able to
control population.
Population. Absolutely, that's a huge part of it.
Well, the reason I'm asking this is in 2008, I actually think I poked a stick into Agenda 21 by accident.
Yeah.
And I found out that June 15th of 1976, the federal government was given control over another faction through HUD of the poorest of the poor, and the ultimate effect is the culling. In other words, the elevated rate of morbidity and mortality. So I didn't know if you had a computer in front of you, but when you get a chance, you might look at what I'd actually exposed to the entire Senate, the entire Congress over the past, I was in D.C. 2009, 10, 11. Mm-hmm. Every one of them know about this issue that I identified, but nothing has been said or done.
Because they like what's going on. They're part of it.
They are part of it, apparently. The only persons that have helped me at all, are you ready? Are you sitting down?
We're here. Yeah.
Orrin Hatch and Rob Bishop.
They've actually helped you.
Yes, they made my issue validated through the GAO and through the CDC. But of course, they can't stick their head above the berm, otherwise they get their head shot off. A few others in D.C., when they spoke out on this, they were removed. Chris Cannon, for example, Bob Bennett. They made the mistake of being a little bit too open about it.
What's the website, Tom, you're talking about you wanted us to go to?
License2kill.us.
Okay.
Right at the top, you'll see a tag which gives the federal government regulatory power over even properties that set in within the city. And it serves two purposes. It's the culling process as well as the sanctuary for the housing and sheltering of the undocumented.
Okay.
Well, we'll look into that some more.
After I exposed that, I was assaulted in D.C., so I'm now blind, and I call myself blind, broke, and homeless.
Wow.
You know, there's no reward for telling the truth. I'm just going to warn you.
Well, I think we've got to do it anyways. The reward is eternal, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, I can
telling us
face my maker and not apologize.
Exactly. So thanks so much for calling in.
Take a look at that and then call me, and you might want to cover that because it exposes so much of the chicanery.
Okay.
Okay, we'll look into it.
Appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Tom.
And ask Mia Love, because I sat with her face to face, and her family actually is a victim of this.
In Haiti or in the United States?
Yes.
Yeah.
See, the foundation, that famous foundation, was trying to pawn off the lethal units that killed people in New Orleans after I'd identified that problem, and I stopped the World Health Organization from literally accepting those units from Haiti, or from Katrina, and actually causing more death in Haiti.
Wow.
So of all people that should be vocal about this should be Mia Love.
You'd think so.
But not a word.
Wow.
And she's in Salt Lake today right now at the Eagle Forum Conference.
Yeah.
Like I say, the only two people that have been good to me on this and fair is Rob Bishop and Orrin Hatch. I wish Orrin Hatch would stay in. I sound crazy, don't I?
That does sound crazy.
But when you get somebody to
somebody
do
helps
something,
you out, you kind of have some affinity and appreciation, and so I can appreciate your feelings on that.
well, see, there's 80,000 families. There's in Utah, and there's 17 million in the nation who, if they knew what Orrin Hatch did, they would love him. If they knew what Rob Bishop through his staff did, they would love Rob Bishop.
On this point specifically, I can imagine why you'd feel that
Right.
way. So, thanks so much for calling in. Call back anytime. Appreciate it. If you've got any more comments on this, we're coming up towards the end of the show, but you want to call in real quick at 254-1640. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore from defendingutah.org. We've got another caller.
Right, we have a caller from Cottonwood Heights. Fred wanted to talk about Agenda 21 and the air, and he says that people aren't talking about the biggest air polluter that he wants to tell us about. Fred, you're on the air.
Okay, first of all, on our nickel, I know we're getting close to the end of the show, is the State Department of Air Quality. They're on our nickel. They're a state agency.
Uh-huh.
And so here we see that TerraCycle and Tesoro were fined a couple of $1 million each for breaching the air quality standards and the rules, the air laws. And yet, in the narrative, you never hear anything about U.S. Magnesium, which puts out 65 million pounds of free-base chlorine products a year out, and not a word. You can't find them any place talked about. But yet, they'll start working on your car, the fireplaces, burning a log, the barbecues, and so on. So it begs the question, is this a computer model that they're looking at to tell us how badly we're doing? And there's no doubt the air's polluted. It's been here since the pioneers came. In fact, they used to put out 40 tons of soot carbon when we all had coal fire furnaces, right. And we didn't have near the riffraff going on now. But it's called pay to play. Get down to my point here. Do you know that Bryce Bird and Kerry Kelly, who is a liaison arm in the Department of Chemistry at the University of Utah, if they can prove that we're being polluted, guess what Bryce Bird got? If I remember correctly, it's right around $5 million to prove that we are polluting the air. This is a government agency. And not only that, Kerry Kelly got near $9 million at the University of Utah to say that we're polluted. So it raises the question, where are the sensors located to tell us all these good things?
That is a great question. Yeah, how are they gathering the data?
That's right.
Because the data is not accurate if it's telling them that if they just tax us per mile, all the problems will go away.
Well, it's just a computer model that they're looking at. And who gathered it? What are the individual materials that the sensors are talking about and gathering?
Right.
Who crunched the numbers? And so when they come out and say this, they'll say that Mickey Mouse is polluting the air just so they'll get pay to play.
Exactly.
Right. So you said the polluters that were U.S. Magnesium, you said was one?
Yes, it is one of the biggest ones out there. It's in Tooele Valley. And I'll give you guys a project. This is something you have to do.
Okay.
As soon as we have some wind and a good storm, and then the air clears out, I want you to get up on Foothill or I-215 around 6200 South and pan the valley and take a shot from the south to the north, and you'll see the south is absolutely crystal clear, and you'll see this big black brownish cloud coming from Tooele Valley that's hitting against Antelope Island and up against Ensign Peak. And there's no doubt in your mind. In fact, if you don't see it the first time, blink your eyes, turn around twice, and look out there. There will be no doubt in your eyes where the pollutants are coming from, unless they're having a car rendezvous out there in idling, and everybody's burning a campfire out there all at the same time.
Which isn't very likely. Thanks so much. Appreciate your call. Call back anytime. That was a really good call. Do we have another one?
Nope.
Okay, good.
We're good.
Because we've only got about 20 seconds
We're out
left.
of time. Yep.
So this is important. We've given you, our listeners, several examples of how Agenda 21 is being implemented right here in your own neighborhoods. And being a lone wolf, just doing it on your own, hasn't done any effect. And so what we need you to do is join with us at Defending Utah. Go to defendingutah.org. This Defending Utah presentation was brought to you in part by Anderson Accounting, when you care enough to pay the very least. AndersonAccounting.com. Trust Plumbing, 801-808-5470. Higher Calling Firearms, HigherCallingFirearms.com. Mini Zoo comes to you, 801-414-5279. American Appliance at AmericanApplianceHVAC.com. And The Editor Lady, theeditorlady@gmail.com. Shem Financial Services, 801-856-6151. And the Law Office of Garrett T. Smith, 801-477-1570. Make sure and subscribe to Defending Utah Radio on iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and YouTube.